Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
Oh, how's it going, gentlemen? Welcome again to yet another episode of the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. My name is Scott McKay, at Scott McKay on Twitter and on Clubhouse and on Truth Social and now on TikTok as well. Real Scott McKay on Instagram. Find all the YouTube goodies, including representations of these episodes, by searching my name, SCOTMCKAY, on YouTube. The website URL, as always, is mountaintoppodcast.com. And gentlemen, listen up. If you're not a member of our Facebook group yet, get you some. Go over there, sign up, join this discussion with like-minded men who are going to be better men and get better women in their lives. That's the Mountaintop Summit on Facebook. With me today is a returning guest. This is his third time on the show. He's one of your favorites. He's the author, the best-selling author, I should say, of one fantastic book called Legendary, which many of you guys have already reported to me that you've read and enjoyed. All the way from, check it out, the unaffiliated Mountaintop Lodge in the beautiful state of Georgia, Tommy Breedlove, Mr. Legendary himself. Welcome, brother.
Scott, my man, my friend, my brother, I am so fired up to be here. Let's throw down and do this, man. I just always love having our chats.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The last two shows you and I have done have rocked the house. And gentlemen, when I told this guy what the topic I had in mind for this particular episode was, his eyes just lit up. He was like, man, I'm all over that. And what we're going to talk about today, Tommy, is whatever happened to rites of passage. And we're going to leave that an open-ended subject because I think it's going to take us down a lot of different paths. But I'll tell you what, Tommy, the first thing that came to mind was the rite of passage from boyhood to manhood. Man, that used to be automatic in this culture years ago. I mean, if you've watched the show 1883, which I can't imagine you haven't, he takes the little boy who's 5 years old, does the character played by Tim McGraw, you know, the patriarch of the Dutton clan, takes John Dutton Sr., who will be, I guess, the great-grandfather of Kevin Costner's character someday, out into the woods and has him shoot his first buck at age 5 and then bloods him afterwards, you know, smears blood on his cheek and everything. And, you know, I said to my wife as we're watching it, man, the woke crowd is out there just vomiting blood themselves over this. I mean, they just got to be beside themselves that they would show such a thing on TV. And, you know, this used to be part of survival 120, 140 years ago. But nowadays, it's like, oh, my God, do we really want our boys to know how to use a gun, to be able to fend for themselves in the wild? And, I mean, really even be assertive at all. What has happened, Tommy? What happened to the rites of passage in this culture, man?
You know, I don't know what's happened, but it is showing its face in so many ugly ways, from the woke crowd to entitlement to, it seems like we're promoting victimhood everywhere. And it wasn't just in our society, it was around the world. It was indigenous societies and cultures from Africa to Asia to Australia. I mean, you name it, to Anglo-Saxons to all over the world. I mean, it was a part of becoming a man. It was a part of owning your own power. The journey from a boy to a man to being, you know, and by the way, 95 to 98% of all the people in the world, we all want the same thing, man. And so for us to try to attack masculinity or boys being boys or men being men, but honestly, we're not taught how to be men anymore. In fact, we're almost under attack. Like if you display any kind of masculinity, I mean, let's just be clear. Us men, we like power. We crave respect. We love status and we like admiration. It's been in our DNA for thousands of years. But unfortunately, with the fatherless society that's out there right now, and I'm not just talking about dads that aren't there. I'm talking about dads that are home that are not there. They're either on their, TV or on their phone or working, or there's just no father-son connection like there used to be. Not every one of us, but a lot of us don't have that anymore. And we need to teach young boys how to be men. We need to teach young boys how to be personal accountable. We need to teach young boys how to protect themselves so they can protect others, lead themselves so they can lead others, and truthfully love themselves so they can love others. And so we've lost that art, and we've got to talk about this. I actually did a rites of passage about 3 or 4 years ago, 11 days in the woods. It was a death ceremony where the old Tommy died and a new Tommy was born. It was 11 days total, but 4 of it was with no food, no shelter, in the woods, all alone. And, the whole point was me to go out there to die, to be reborn. But it's called Rites of Passage Council. And I was on their board for years. And we've just totally lost that. And I think it's rearing its face right now. And, again, the victimhood promoting, the entitlement promoting, apathy. I think we're lazier, and I'm allergic to all of those things. And so we need to bring it back to teach young girls how to be women and young boys how to be men. And I just think we're missing that right now. I think it's a generational thing. I think it's a fatherless thing. The media wants us to all feel like victims or entitled. And it's a true pandemic right now, man. Be honest with you.
Yeah. You've already thrown so much on the table there. The one thing that I've got to call out right from the top here is you mentioned how men have an inherent desire for respect and personal power. And just 2 days prior to this show's release, this very episode's release, I did a whole masterclass called Bold Assertiveness Earns Respect. And I tied respect to personal power deeply within the context of that. If you guys want to check it out, it's mountaintoppodcast.com/masterclass, especially if you're listening to this show within a couple weeks of it being released. And you guys know, after 305 episodes, I don't typically pitch a whole lot of stuff mid-roll, but this is one exception I'm going to make because you were just right on the money with this. And you also talked about how this is centuries old. I mean, every culture has a rite of passage from boyhood to manhood. And yet nowadays we look at cultures like, say, the Maasai, who have a very clear cut, and I say that literally, ritual from boy to man in their culture that would make most Western men just cringe. It'd make our buttholes pucker, frankly, to even think about. And, there's just no denying when these young men in the Maasai tribes go through this rite of passage, they come out the other side of man, ready to go out and hunt lions and be participating part of the men in that group. And yet nowadays, I'm guessing what it all comes down to, Tommy, is there's really no clear-cut need to be a man. Things are automated. We can watch life happen on TV. Adventure is something that is undertaken by someone else, and we get to vicariously, again, watch it on TV or the internet. You walk into any given store and you look at the kid behind the counter and he just doesn't look like a man. He doesn't act like a man. Sometimes he doesn't even want to be a man. He couldn't care less. And Tommy, one of the things that I've said already on this show is when you minimize the role of a man of the house, when you tell him that his ability to provide, protect, and preside over that household flat out isn't necessary anymore, what it does is it leaves a void. And I think you came very close to spitting it out. And what you were alluding to is the only thing left to step in there is the government. And that scares the hell out of me.
Yeah. Do we want that? I mean, clearly, when it comes to financial policy or military policy or even economic policy, clearly their track record has been great. Now, do we want them raising our kids and teaching us how to go from a boy to a man? They want that.
What did Ronald Reagan say? What are the 9 scariest words in the English language? I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Right?
And he's spot on, man. And he was the president of the United States.
Exactly. He would know. That was the head of the snake talking.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, people in power always want power. That's what they want. And they want you to feel like you need to suck off the tea of the government. And they want you to feel like a victim. Hey, we've got you. Left and right do this right, by the way. It's just not the woke left. It's also the right.
100%. 100%.
We've got you, right? And they want you to feel powerless, to feel like a victim, but also to feel angry at the other side. And here's the truth at the end of the day about rites of passage is what we crave right now is authenticity and leadership. And the whole point of rites of passage back in the day was survival. Because if anyone from a different race, a different religion, a different culture, hell, it could be the neighboring state, when they showed up, they usually meant you ill harm. And they were either going to conquer you, take something from you, needed something from you, or expanding, and they were going to kill you and take your women and do things that you just don't even want to describe. So, It was literally life or death back then.
And nowadays, the closest we see to any need for that is in a video game in this culture.
Correct. But here's what we don't have in this culture is true leadership. And what happens when you go from a boy to a man? You're learning leadership. You're learning protection. You're learning confidence. You're learning courage. You're learning to own your own power, not looking for power from someone else, but truly owning your internal power. And what does that still give you today? Well, it's still, the number one thing people want in leaders, the number one thing, and this is leaders at home, this is leaders at work, this is leaders everywhere, is they want confidence. Not just confidence in you doing your work and doing it well, but internal confidence. What does that mean? Self-esteem, self-respect, self-leadership, and self-love. And the number one failure in leadership right now, both in businesses at home, is knowing thyself, self-awareness. So if you're not taught emotional strength, if you're not taught mental strength, if you're not taught leadership, and usually who did that? Your fathers of the tribe. And then what did they want? After you had led a life, after you had hunted, after you had gone to war to protect, after you had farmed, after you had raised a family and learned how to screw it all up, and then to get it right, guess what that rite of passage did to you then? They made you an elder. And elders are what we're also missing. So we're not just missing from boys to men. We're missing those elders. And we even have taken it so bad that we tuck our elderly away so that we don't see them, so that we can't see their dying. Whereas in ancient cultures, even this 200 years ago, that's where your wisdom, that's where your leaders were, because they'd been there, done that. And now with technology changes and political changes and all this new age movements, we've tucked them away. And the government saying, no, we'll lead you now. Don't listen to your elders. Don't listen to your religion. Don't listen to the ways it's always done. And the reason it was done certain ways is because there was wisdom in it. I'm not saying don't always push the envelope and innovate and get better, but we're not only missing men, we're missing elders. And we're showing it right now in lack of confidence, lack of leadership, lack of accountability. There's no accountability anymore. Everybody else is someone's fault. It's either the government's fault or a politician's fault or some other person's fault. And, we're in what also rites of passage do give us personal accountability, power, extreme ownership, but also confidence, courage, and just self-damn respect. And by the way, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to tell you, women love confidence. And by the way, they still want to be pursued. They still want to be dated because they also want to feel safe, loved, seen, heard, and valued. And when we pursue them, that makes them feel that way. So I'll just leave it at that.
Well, let's talk about women for a quick sec, because after all, that's what we major in around. Men lead, men make the first move.
But they want to be pursued. They want to be pursued.
Right. They want you to choose them, not to chase them,
Correct.
But to go and say, you're the one I want. Nothing makes a woman feel more safe and secure than that. And the old adage
and they want
goes,
you to work for it.
Right. Well, sometimes, yes. But the old adage is if you can't stand up to her, you can't stand up for her. And what I think a lot of guys miss is if you don't instill that notion in her, that you are a man who leads, provides, and protects, she will not respect you. Then she has to become your mommy instead of your lover. And that's what I want to talk about next, because a lot of guys overlook the important part of a woman respecting him. And I'll tell you what, when she starts respecting you, she gets sexually turned on by you. That doesn't mean, like you said so eloquently, Tommy, that you're, lording anything over her or putting her under your direct control in some toxic way, but rather you're fulfilling on her primal needs she has for masculinity that is meant to ignite her femininity. And I've read research on this. There is a direct psychological correlation between leaving the nest, getting out from under your mommy's care, going out in the world and making your own way and experiencing a transformation in how you view women. Women are no longer your caretakers. They become your lovers. And the single biggest psychological problem for men who stay at home, live at home with their mommies, living the easy life, letting her cook them dinner, letting those mommies do their laundry, etc., being mollycoddled until they're 25, 30, 40, God forbid, 50. those men never experience a rite of passage, even in their own psyche, from seeing women as providers and protectors of them to flipping the script and all of a sudden I'm the man of the new house. I'm the provider and protector of a wife and of my children and of my domain that I'm the master of. And what ends up happening is these guys sit at home with Cheeto fingers playing video games, wondering why no women want them, why women aren't attracted. And primarily, deep down, every man I know who lives at home doesn't go around shouting it from the rooftops when he's trying to attract women, because deep down, Tommy, they know this. It's a fact, isn't it?
It's in the DNA, man.
I'm telling you.
Because deep down in, men want to be admired. And how do you become admired? Is you gotta be confident and earn respect. You gotta earn respect. Respect's not given. You gotta earn it. And sitting at home eating Cheetos, watching porn, and playing video games, brother, that is a recipe for self-hate and just self-loathing and eventual just depression, anxiety, all the bad stuff. So,
but see, it's the
I don't
easy
even understand
road.
Men who stay at home.
It's the easy
I don't
button.
Understand it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you know, the psychology there. Yeah, the psychology there, Tommy, is the pain of not getting what I'm dreaming of has to exceed the pain I feel about being lazy, not being productive, still living at home and feeling shame that my mom's still taking care of me. So until I want something that seems scary to obtain, independence, having a woman in my life, until the pain of not having that in my life exceeds the comfort level of staying at home, not having to do anything, it's going to be status quo.
Mm. And I think there's some accountability and enablement on the mom's part there too, right? It's about time for her to kick the old birdie out of the nest.
And, you know, we could do a whole nother show on influence of parents well into our adulthood, because certainly, for sure, there are some selfish parents out there who, they have ulterior motives for keeping their kids at home. But, you know, children are designed to be raised into adulthood. We're supposed to leave the nest. I mean, for God's sake, Tommy, we got a puppy. We didn't get the puppy when it was 50 years old. We got the puppy when it was 9 weeks old. And after a few days of whining and crying, it was happy to be here. And now it's basically growing up to be a stronger, more mature looking dog. If a dog can do it, what's our excuse?
That's right. That's right. We weren't designed to be, we weren't designed to hibernate and to hide. We just weren't designed for that. We were designed to serve and make impact. So, well,
yeah, we're supposed to be the higher life form than a dog, right?
Right.
One would think. Well, you know, I want to take this in a little bit different a direction, because I'm sure someone out there is saying, well, Scott, I had a bar mitzvah. I graduated from high school. I graduated from college. Some of these guys are out there going, well, you know what? I've already been married. All of those are ceremonial rites of passage. But I don't know. I think it's nice to look at a particular moment in life and see it as a specific line in the sand where I'm moving from one part of my life to another, perhaps more evolved, more responsible time in my life. But one of my friends, Michael Berry, who runs a nationally syndicated radio talk show, and I've been on his show before, and it's a lot of fun. He was bemoaning things like kindergarten graduation, 8th grade graduation. He's like, yeah, I suppose it's an excuse for a party, but if everything is a rite of passage, then nothing's a rite of passage. Graduation from high school, graduation that really means you're going to be doing something different very soon than what you were doing this past year or whatever. I think those are the rites of passage that should be focused more upon. You know what I mean? It's like we've cheapened rite of passage in a blatant attempt to minimalize it. What's up with that?
That could be true. And what it misses is pain. There needs to be, and it doesn't have to be pain, but when you look at indigenous and ancient rites of passage, there had to be massive amounts of courage. You were alone. You had to make decisions. And in a lot of situations and a lot of times there was some pain involved as well. Because you know what all of that's a metaphor for? Life. It's not when life kicks you into place. It's when, it's not if. And so the reason they were preparing, and women went through it as well. And honestly, women can endure physical pain significantly more than men can. But what the rites of passage were preparing is you're going to have courage in life. You're going to have to make a decision in life. You will feel pain in life, and you're going to have to run to the fire and not away from the fire, because someone's not always going to be there to save you. Mama isn't always going to be there. Life, sickness, politics, war, disease, losing business, losing money. And are you going to be able to stand there with confidence, courage, and know, hey, I've got this? Or are you going to cower and just die? And so all of these rites of passage, whether it's 8th grade or kindergarten, or you get a trophy for 9th place, all this nonsense, there's no pain in it. There's no courage in it. There's no decision making in it. And there's no confidence in it. And that's what those things are missing. That's why sports are so powerful. Is sports, you got pain. You got to make a decision. You got to show up with courage, or you're going to get beat, period. And I think that's why people love and hold on to sports. And it's not everybody, but I think that's why they hold on to it, because it's our last arena where we can get in, we can get dirty, we can compete, we can lose, we can win, we can learn, we can grow, and we can work as teams, and we can make decisions, and we have to be courageous. And that's why people love the sporting element. It's our modern day arena, and maybe that's our rite of passage, but they're even trying to take that away as well. So whoever they are.
Yeah, the royal day. I agree with you 100%. My kids are involved in gritty sports themselves. And I had to laugh because you talked about the 9th place trophy. And at the national level, and indeed in any BMX race, which is the sport that my kids are involved with, there were only 8.
A lot of pain in that one, brother.
Oh, yeah. Oh, tell me about it. You want to pay my doctor bills for me, my emergency room bills? You're welcome to. How about my health insurance premiums? You can get that for me too. But the point is, on a standard BMX gate, there are only 8 spots. So if there are 140 kids who show up for 14 expert at a national, there are only 8 kids who make the main. All 8 of them will get a trophy for making the main, but the rest of them will all go home. So 9th place is always the first guy at a national who doesn't get the trophy.
Wow. But to get on that 8, man, that's pretty legit, brother.
No, it is legit. To win a national is an amazing thing. One of my son's friends just did that for the first time. And dude, you would think that he just got coronated King of England, you know. It was amazing for the kid. And indeed, you know, those kids who excel in these sports, even if they play varsity football or baseball or wrestling's another one that builds grit for sure. You could argue that it's kind of weird for boys to roll around sweating with each other, but wrestling is a rough and tumble sport that builds grit if you're into it. What came to mind, however, was military. You want a rite of passage, join the Marine Corps when you get out of high school. And you know, Tommy, World War II is so far removed from our zeitgeist nowadays. But, 18-year-old kids were conscripted. You got that rite of passage whether you were looking for it or not, unless you somehow had flat feet or something. And same in the Vietnam era.
Same in Vietnam. That's right. That's right.
And you can argue whether the cause of the war is right or wrong. But one thing that you can't argue is any veteran you've ever met can draw a line in the sand where, damn it, he became a man. Because you don't walk into boot camp and walk out of there some little boy. It doesn't happen.
Couldn't agree more. And again, what a metaphor for life. I mean, you're going to have to be a man. You're going to have to be a woman. And by the way, it takes strong masculine and strong feminine. Nature's a balance. The reason nature is balanced. We're the grand experiment that's been just a fucking failure today. I don't know if I can say that, but I just said it. We're the grand experiment. We're the grand experiment, man. And, Mike Tyson said it best is, everybody, what happens when you get punched in the face?
Everybody has a plan until they're punched in the face, right?
Especially by Mike. Yeah. I mean, that would hurt. And whether it's the military or sports.
Or JetBlue Airways.
Yeah. This is true. I mean, again, courage, confidence, self-respect, self-leadership, making decisions, pain. That's just a big metaphor for life. And I mean, we've got to start looking in the mirrors. We've got to be personally accountable to our success, to our self-respect, to our self-confidence. And what I love about, especially my wife, what I love about her is she is very ambitious and driven. So she wants respect. She wants to get out there and be world class and kick ass and be badass in business. And she wants to compete with the boys. But at the end of the day, if I asked her, what does she want from me? It's love and safety. That's what she wants from me. She wants to feel safe in our relationship and she wants to feel loved. How does she feel loved? Acts of service. But she still wants me to pursue her, to make her feel pretty, to make her feel loved, to make her feel safe. That's what she wants. And what do I want from her? Truth be told, admiration. Now, that's probably not for all men, but I want her to respect me. I want her to look at me and that this guy's got this. This guy's got my back. And you know what she always says to me? Protect and defend this fort. What does that mean? Love and safety. She goes, Tommy, protect and defend this fort. Love and safety. And for me, when I do that and I show up for myself and I lead and I love and I stand there with confidence and courage. And by the way, I work on coaches with this stuff. She just loves and respects me more. And by the way, I got to say it, I'm also authentic and vulnerable with it. It's like, baby, I ain't got this figured out. I need your help. And she loves that because now I've empowered her to help me as well. And I'm not trying to sit up there on some white horse and be something I'm not. So it's a yin and yang, brother. And I'll get off my soapbox. But at the end of the day, do you want to stand in confidence and power, or do you just want to be a whipping boy for the world just to kick its ass? And that's a decision that you've got to make, right? And so, and I know you and I are on the same page on that.
Whipping boy is a term I use to describe guys who don't feel respect in that masterclass I ran 2 nights ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah. You can hang out on that soapbox all day long for all I care because you are absolutely hitting it out of the park. Listen, if there is an exception to what you just said about men wanting respect and to be admired by their wives and wives being safety and security seeking creatures, I'd like to meet him.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure what kind of doctor he needs to correct that, but that's the way of the universe. That's the masculine feminine dance in the most elegant, concise terms possible. And that's what it's all about. And that's what we've got to become someday to have fulfilling relationships. You were talking about respect. Respect is important. It's been on my mind for the better part of this month. Obviously, I've already said why. And, there are no fulfilling relationships where there isn't mutual respect. And if you're still acting like a little boy, all I have to say is good luck with that.
Yeah, no doubt.
Period. One thing you mentioned earlier that I don't want to let flow under this bridge without being talked about is the rite of passage into elderhood. And I've heard that very word used as others, scholars, social scientists, sociologists have talked about the subject of rites of passage because I researched this episode, as I do the vast majority of them. And as primal, as universal a language as masculinity and femininity are, as mathematics is, as rites of passage have been historically across millennia of culture, so is respect for elders. Every culture on earth, from disparate geographies ranging from Native Americans to the Chinese, the Japanese, respect for elders is in many cases paramount. And yet, just like you said, we are starting to disrespect our elders more and more. We're hiding them in, yes, we're abdicating responsibility to take care of them in their old age. We're trafficking them off to nursing homes, etc. I mean, God bless the older folks who are hanging out at the villages playing golf all day and living their sunset years out in joy. Great,
Apparently, that's one of the highest STD rates down there, too, man. So they're having a whole lot of fun down there.
I read the same thing. Isn't that fantastic?
I love it.
They have organized crime in the villages. That's how
really?
big it's gotten. Yeah, they got like the mob in there.
I love it.
But we digress.
Let's do a show on the villages. Let's go down there and do it.
I envision Godfather Part 4 in the future. The villages.
I love it. Oh,
but you know what? There's something to be said for this rite of passage into elderhood. Maturity, wisdom, decision-making, the ability to mentor young men, not just little boys, but to be there to help young men find their way and to maximize and to self-actualize. I think that's wonderful.
And do it with humility.
Mr. Miyagi compared to Cobra Kai stuff, That's how I envision it. And it's fantastic and it's wonderful. And I'll tell you, there are other rites of passage that we probably should mention, from student to workforce. Everybody knows someone who's on their 6th master's degree because they would rather, as James Clear says, do a bunch of stuff instead of flat out acting. Planning, trying to get the setup right, talking about things, scheming about things. But you'll never be effective. You'll never really show your mettle until you put all that to the test with something that has a hardcore result tied to it.
Difference between sitting in the stands and getting in the arena.
Yes, that's student to workforce. Marriage is indeed a rite of passage. You know, you're going from being an individual to being a couple. There's now two of you. You're a team. You want to talk about that some? Because I know you have a happy marriage and a fulfilling marriage like I do. So I want to hear your thoughts.
I do, but brother, I effed that up for so many years.
That's all right.
It's interesting that my wife came from a very loving, you can do anything type of family. And it showed up in her life. It showed up in her careers. And I came from, you suck, you're not going to be good enough, a lot of violence, a lot of abuse, and watched my mom and dad basically try to kill each other for the first 18 years of my life, both physically, verbally, you name it, man. And so it's interesting. We absorb what our parents are, right? And so because of my background, I never really trusted women for so many times because it's just, I was taught at a very young age that they couldn't be trusted. So how did that look in my life is I would try to pull the rug out of our relationship before Heather ever, that's the name of my wife, before Heather ever had a chance to pull it out on me, because my mom did it, my sister did it, and the first 3 or 4 girlfriends I had, I attracted that into my life, right? Because that's what I knew and that's what I felt safe with. And through a lot of work, so we got married and I thought, okay, now I'm going to be happy. Well, wherever you go, there you are, right? And it wasn't till I started and looked in the mirror and knew that that was the problem and the solution, that Heather was not the problem here. But Heather was turning into my mom. You said it earlier, right? Because we were having this codependent dance. She's like, well, hell, I've got to raise this young man because no one ever raised him, right? And that's not a marriage, by the way. That's a mom-son relationship. So when we realized it, and it was almost too late, brother, but when we realized it, we doubled down not only on us. When I say us, I did the work for self-confidence, self-respect, self-love with coaches, with mentors, with therapists, with books. I mean, I did the work and I still do the work 12 years later. She does the work on her, how to stand in her power, how to stand in her confidence, for her to be a lover and not a mother. So we did the work separately and we do the work together. So just getting married, you're going to mimic what you know from your parents. It's not what your parents told you, it's what they did. And for me, I had to cut that chain. I had to cut that lack of self-confidence, lack of self-respect. Seeking a mother because I never really had a mother, if that makes sense, and get the balance back. I heard the great poet David White said a marriage is a contest of generosity, and I thought that was just beautiful. And for me, I needed to stand in my own power, my own self-love, my own self-confidence, and stand with head up, shoulders back to earn that respect from her, to earn that, because I had to respect myself for her to respect me. Heather loved me when I didn't love myself, man. And that was the problem in our marriage. And I damn near nuked it twice. And through all of this, we're 22 years into this dance now, 25 all in. And we have never been more attracted to each other, more sexual, more intimate, more communicative, laugh, enjoy, and not take this life so damn serious. But we do the damn work. And what you got in marriages is you've got two people with their own desires, with their own needs, with their own idiosyncrasies, and with their own insecurities. And if you can communicate that, you can talk about it, you can learn each other's love language, and you work on it separately and together, man, it could be your partner in life. Doesn't matter if you're straight or gay, your partner in life, whoever you choose to do this life with, is going to be the board of directors of your life. They're either going to anchor you or excel you. And so choose wisely. But again, you've got to do the work. Just like to be successful in business, you got to do the work. To be successful in the field, you got to do the reps. To be successful in marriage, you've also got to do the work, because it's not if you're going to have problems, it's when. And are you going to run to the fire or away from the fire, or take the easy route, which is divorce? And screw that. We didn't want that. So that's how Heather and I did it. And thank you for letting me be honest there, because it wasn't like that forever, but it has been like that for a long time now.
That's powerful. Marriage is a contest of generosity.
Isn't that beautiful? Just the great Irish poet David White said that.
How long ago was that coined?
I don't know. He's still alive. And so I follow David. I read his stuff. I listen to, if you go to YouTube, just Google David White, man, and there's all sorts of beauty out there, and have him read it to you. But I read that, and I can't remember which book I read it, but it was just, I had to quote it. And it's just one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard.
I should have that cat on this show.
Oh my God. Absolutely. And you know what I love about David is reading his poetry. He's so wise now. You talk about an elder, from humility to getting it right. And you know how you become elders? By effing it up. The only way to learn is by failing. And we're so scared of failing these days. And David, the reason his writing is so powerful, his words are so powerful, because he was such a mess up for so long until he looked in the mirror and said, no more. And you talk about that transition from a man to an elder. He's one of the true elders in this life. And from his words to his poetry to his seminars to his beauty to his writings, it's just filled with wisdom and humility. And that comes from him being an elder, and it comes from all those failures, which turn to learnings, which turn to wisdom.
Fantastic. I'm going to have to look this guy up and get him on the show. But listen, I've often talked about the three-legged stool of a great marriage is generosity, optimism. I think the best of you. I think the best about you instead of fearing the worst, and getting each other, understanding what's going on in each other's head because you're like-minded. And I think if marriage is a contest of generosity, then divorce is the carnage of selfishness.
Amen.
The direct negative result of it. And, you know, so much dating relationship advice out there, Tommy, is about trying to keep your partner's hand off your stack and trying to get what you want and manipulate them into doing your bidding. And that does not a successful marriage make. And frankly, to kind of bring this full circle, that's for little boys, not men.
Amen.
The last thing that I want to say that I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention, and this is to close it off, I think this will stand alone, is I really think it's a shame in this culture how the next time we see some of our far-flung family members will be at their funerals.
Oh.
You know, people talk about funerals as a rite of passage. And I think we should celebrate the life of those we love and be in community with each other, rather than seeing death as an excuse to throw a party and to maybe see this person for one last time. That's just something I had stuck in my craw that I wanted to kind of float out there. But anyway.
Yeah, I think about that often too. I've got two elderly parents, so when I reverse engineer, I might see them 4 more times in my life. And I want to make sure that 4 more times is quality and not quantity. And I want to live without regrets and there's no more unspoken words between us. And we've got a loving relationship, but reverse engineer how many times, what's important to you in your life? And do you want to live life without regrets? And regrets would be not saying goodbye or not spending the time with the people we love and cherish and care about the most. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely want to try to close wounds, not open them. When you've got elderly parents, amen to that for sure.
Amen.
His name is Tommy Breedlove. He is the Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling author of Legendary. A lot of you guys have already snapped up your copy of that book. If you're not yet one of them, head to mountaintoppodcast.com/Amazon, where I have moved it directly up to the top of the Amazon influencer queue for you there on that page. You can also go to mountaintoppodcast.com/Legendary. and get you a copy. Tommy Breedlove, once again, hit it out of the park, my man. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Great stuff as always.
Humbled, my brother. Anytime, anywhere, you need anything, I'm there, brother. Have a great one, Scott.
Well, you may be humbled, but I'm flat out proud to have you. How about that?
I love it.
See what I did there?
I did.
All right, gentlemen, if you haven't been to mountaintoppodcast.com just yet, listen, you can catch every new episode Fridays at midnight Central Time. That's 1 a.m. on the East Coast, almost without fail. You know, I don't want to say without fail because I don't want to write a check I can't cash, but certainly for the last 3 years, every single Friday, there's been a new show. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts and you will never miss a thing. Also, when you go to mountaintoppodcast.com, check out the link. It's kind of in that revolving set of banners I have there for masterclasses. If you liked this episode, you're going to love that masterclass I ran for you guys on the topic of assertiveness that earns respect. Listen, I'm not going to ask you to be Don Corleone. I want you to be the most evolved man you can be. Be an example to younger kids. Earn the respect in the workplace and with the women in your life. It's worth it. It isn't even all that hard. You've been hardwired to do that. A lot of this is just cutting loose and setting it free. Once you are a man who is more assertive, you get more of what you want, and more people admire you. Respect is a linchpin of a masculine life well lived. Check it out and so much more at mountaintoppodcast.com. And until I talk to you again real soon, this is Scott McKay from X and Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X and Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X and Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.